Hello, everyone. Welcome to Monday. Aaron Stewart, Data Access Golf, the live Facebook show. Today, we're going to jump into the data that matters that got the job done for Chez Reavie at the Travelers Championship up in Cromwell, Connecticut. What a pretty place, right? I mean, that was so amazingly green and amazing play and some really interesting things happening at the top with Suture coming up and then falling apart and then coming back, and a really good feel-good story there. But anyway, let's jump right into it and get it done. Cool. We're back. Yeah, that was a really exciting kind of tournament there for a couple, Suture there for a couple days just kind of ran away with it. And everybody was talking about how he just didn't care, that he could go low and didn't really, nothing seemed to bother him and he could handle it. And I think there was a lot of us a little worried about him and worried about that. And then kind of on Saturday, right, he had that stretch right in the middle where he just kind of fell apart, and then Chez went crazy. And wow, from 5 strokes down to 6 strokes up, basically on the back 9 on Saturday, that was that was crazy. And so Chez found himself in a very good spot. And then yesterday, I was pretty fascinated to see how Keegan Bradley, we haven't really heard much from him. And again, he's married, he's got a little one now, and that definitely changes things. But to see him in front of the local fans kind of come flying back and make it interesting until the double bogey on 17, and Chez kind of got some breathing room and went into it. But anyway, I kind of wanted to bring the sort of the data up that matters. Before we get sort of going on that, just a quick intro. So next week, or I guess later this week, we've got the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And based on, they always do the strength of the field on Mondays and kind of give you an idea of who's going to be playing in it. So some of the notables there I thought was pretty interesting. So you've got Dustin Johnson is kind of the leader in the clubhouse before they even play. And then Hideki, and again, this is just sort of based on not only their, how they've done in the past, but which is weird because we're back in Michigan in Detroit. This hasn't been played there for. It's interesting to see how they rank all these players, but it's all just a bunch of, right? It's everybody's guessing, right? So they've got Dustin Johnson, Hideki Matsuyama, Gary Woodland. So for his first tournament after becoming the U.S. Open champion, he'll be back in business. Kevin Streelman, who typically plays really well and had actually won the Travelers Championship earlier. I don't know if you remember, he birdied like the last 7 holes to win that one by 3 or 4. That was a pretty cool thing. You've got Ryan Moore, who we haven't heard much of this year. Kevin Kisner. This was interesting to me. You've got Ricky Fowler at 7th. And, okay. And they've got Kevin Kisner and Ryan Moore before him. And yet, if we look at the consistency numbers, Ricky Fowler's actually having a better year than either of those two. So I don't know. I don't know where they come up with these numbers. And then Chez Reavie, the one who just won at the Travelers Championship, they've got him at 8th. He is, I think typically we see like Brooks Koepka seemed a little exhausted after his U.S. Open run. And sometimes after you've won a big tournament, it's very hard to play the next week. So I get that. But Chez is also sort of a journeyman. So it'll be interesting to see how he shows up, how he plays. And we'll jump into some of his numbers and kind of get an idea of what he's been doing. But kind of looking back up here, really the only person that we've heard much from for the rest of the year that they have in their sort of who to watch is Brandt Snedeker coming in at what they've predicted to be 12th. Okay, so that's really all we've got going, but that will be the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And those are the power rankings coming up at the Detroit Golf Club in Michigan. Again, we should see a lot of, there was a lot of moisture up there. It should be super green, super lush. I don't know much about the Detroit golf club. So it'll be kind of fun to watch it and see this track on TV. So, okay, I'm going to bring up my screen now. We'll jump right into the data that matters and see how Chez Reavie got it done. Just for all those who are joining us here at Data Access Golf, we love data and we love backing up and seeing how they got it done based on data. And then we'll actually use not only their 2018 numbers, but their tournament numbers to kind of see how they compare against what we call our performance benchmarks. And we use those benchmarks to make sure that we are taking care of our game in the areas in which our game is weakest, right? So we're not out there pounding a bunch of drivers when our driver game is just fine, or we're not out there putting a bunch of 20-footers when we really should just be focused on 5-footers, and we'll get into that as well. So let me bring up that screen real quick. The side screen here, that should bring it up. Yep, there we are. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's take a look at this. You know what? That's not really working for me, is it? Can we put this out of the way or I'm not bugging it? I'll just cover the logo. How's that? Does that work for everybody? Good. Okay, so just a couple things about Chez Reavie, just some quick research to kind of help us get to know him a little bit. He's 37 years old, and he joined the PGA Tour way back in 2004, right? So he's been out there quite some time. It's been 11 years between, he's got 2 victories. It's been 11 years between these 2 victories. He also won the 2008 Canadian Open a long time ago. And so it's you can see down there if you jump a couple, it's the 11th longest span since 1900 between victories. Okay, so it's been a while for Chez. He's got to be completely pumped and excited. He's played in the Travelers Championship 9 times. His best results in the majors, I thought this was interesting. His best finish at the Masters has been 53rd. His best finish at the PGA has been tied for 12th. His best finish in the U.S. Open is tied for 3rd, and that was just the previous week. So his game had kind of sort of come into form as he went to the Travelers, and he was feeling obviously a great deal of confidence going in there after finishing tied 3rd. And we'll also see basically on some of these numbers down here a little bit that he's trending in the right direction over the course of the last 5 years. And then the British Open, he has actually never made the cut. So interesting. I found this really cool too. And I know I've gotten some comments and things that I need to just call it the Open and move on with it. The problem with it is they used to call it the British Open, and I find that calling it the Open Championship now is presumptuous at best. It is somewhere near, right, the birthplace of golf, but it is not the hotbed of golf anymore. That is here in the United States. So it just seems a little weird to say, hey, you know, we are the Open Championship. No, you're not. You're the British Open. You have been for a number of years, and then you decided to change your name to help you feel more important about yourselves. But sorry, I mean, I'm a Stuart, for heaven's sakes. I have of Scottish descent, and maybe that's it. Maybe I just don't like, maybe it's my Scottish heritage that hates calling it the Open Championship, but I won't. It's the British Open. It has been for a long time, and we're going to keep it that way. Okay, so yes, it's the British Open. But anyway, Chez Reavie has never made that. You'll see back in, actually it's kind of cool, when I looked back through the history of Chez Reavie's playing, actually down about 2000 and I think it was about 2010, right around in there, it actually had him playing in the British Open, and I had a good chuckle about that. So not even the statisticians had it as the Open Championship. They had it as the British Open. Now, more recently, yes, they have it as the Open Championship. But he's never made the cut, so I'll bet Chez Reavie doesn't care what we call it either. It kind of brings up a little. So we're here in Utah, and there are a number of private courses around, private clubs, and we have one up in the Salt Lake Valley that we all refer to. Anybody outside of that club refers to it as the Salt Lake Country Club, Salt Lake City being the capital of Utah. The members up there, and actually their logo and everything, they have named that club the Country Club. I was like, what? And I've actually got a good friend who's a member up there. What? The country? You are the Country Club? And like all the world? The Country Club. Yeah, no. So I will not refer to that club either as the Country Club. I always refer to it as SLCC, Salt Lake Country Club, or just Salt Lake Country Club. Never the Country Club. Give me a break, folks. And yeah, I know a few people up there. Good folks, just a horrible name for a private club. Like it's so bad you don't want to join the place. Right? It has nothing to do with the fact that I-80 runs right next to it, and it's just got highway noise everywhere around the course. They don't like to talk about that either. Anyway, folks, jumping right back into it. Okay, so Chez Reavie, another little fun fact about Chez Reavie, he is the last former PGA Tour winner, right? So he won in 2008, lost his card, and then requalified for the tour at Q School. So he is the very last person to have done that. And obviously the Q School now is gone, and we have to go up through the web.com tour and all of that good stuff. But he was the last one to do that. He's the last active player to get that done. So the last PGA Tour winner to get that done. So kind of cool. And then have to throw this in, an ASU Sun Devil, go Devils. Absolutely right. Gotta love ASU. Okay, so let's continue on. Let me see if this works. I think I have to highlight this screen in order for this to go. So let's see if that goes. Boom, there we go. Okay, so the benefit of winning this tournament for Chez Reavie, what did it do for his rankings? Well, this is completely wrong. So forgive me here. I got these mixed up. I'm gonna just change this right now. Can I change it right now? Yeah. I'm gonna go like this. Watch this. FedEx Cup. And then World Golf rankings. Okay, boom, fixed. Right, now it's accurate, folks. So FedEx Cup ranking. Actually, I needed to fix this anyway because it's opposite on the sheet that I keep track of it all on. So this is good. This works out well. So the FedEx Cup ranking, he went from 35th spot all the way up to 12th spot. Pretty important move, right? And then the World Golf rankings, he went from 48th all the way up to 26th. So pretty cool. It's kind of funny too. The going up to 12th spot basically was the same spot that Gary Woodland ended up in. So, all right, my friends. I guess that's in the world rankings, though, right? Anyway, never mind. So, anyway, obviously a great win. It's moved Chez up. We will see later on and how he's trending that this has actually been a pretty good year for Chez Reavie, and actually he's had a couple. So you can say that we've seen this coming for a little while. Okay, so let's keep moving down here to our next screen. You're gonna make me do it that way, so be it. Okay, so consistency rating, I'll just explain that really quick. We like to look at, here at Data Access Golf, again, data. So we like to look at how consistent these players have been over the course of their career. And the why we do that is because one of the most amazing things about Tiger Woods is how consistent he has been from the day he came on the tour. He has just been so dominant. And Tiger Woods is the only person that we have looked at, and again, the only player who has won this year, who has a consistency rating, which is essentially the number of events, the number of cuts you've made divided by the events that you've entered. Tiger Woods is the only person who has won this year. And really, I mean, we could probably say, I've never looked at Jack Nicklaus's numbers. I don't know if they even kept this stat back then. But Tiger Woods is the only person to make the cut consistently at a 90% rate or higher, which is shocking when you see everybody else. Okay, amazingly, just amazing. So anyway, this is the consistency rating. You can see there that I have taken the consistency scale, and basically what I've done is broken out. It's essentially just 10 percentage points in each little group. I have named them Legends, Elite, Solid, Good, and Card question mark, which means if you are in that 59% or lower as far as your consistency rating, your cuts made rating, chances are you are not going to keep your card unless you do something drastic like win, right? That's really the only way to do it. Because there's so many people up above you that are playing more consistently. They are the ones that typically get into the FedEx Cup playoffs and don't have to worry about losing their card. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here. So Chez Reavie, he has entered 278 events since turning pro on the PGA Tour, and he has made the cut 173 times, which puts him at a consistency rating of 62%. So right in that good player category. Now that's over the course of his entire career. So we would be typically worried about Chez, right? If you get down into the 50s, you can lose your card. He has lost his card in the past, and we should be a little concerned. Now he has now won and picked up a couple of years of exemptions, which will be very helpful. But we honestly don't have to worry about Chez anyway because of what this victory did for his FedEx Cup ranking. I mean, he's up to 12th now. So he will keep his card this year even if he hadn't, well, he was 35th. He would have kept his card anyway this year because of his strong play. Now he's won, he doesn't have to worry about it. But that's kind of where we're at. So Chez now, he still though, over the course of his career, he fits into this good category. Had a really great recommendation from a listener that said, hey, but this doesn't really show how they're trending. This shows their consistency over their career. And I thought, you know what, that's a great point. So I did actually throw in a new slide that we've been using for the last couple weeks. And this is what we call the trending slide, right? So trending right there, trending. Good. Again, we look, Tiger Woods is the only one 90 and above. Those that are elite level who have won this year, Koepka, McIlroy, Molinari, Dustin Johnson, Mickelson, Rose, and Patrick Cantlay has sneaked up into that spot, into that 80% area. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about. This holds up pretty well. When you look at how they've played over the course of their career, their consistency, it goes to show you sort of where they're going to end up as far as their careers go, right? So in that solid category, winners of this year, you've got Holmes, Kevin Mitchell, Paul Casey, Gary Woodland. But Gary Woodland has been trending. If you watched last week's show, Gary Woodland has been trending really well this year. Solid players, no, let's see, good players that have won this year. Kisner, McDowell, Penn, Palmer, and now Chez Reavie fits into that good category as well. Okay, so how is Chez trending? Well, in 2015 is the first time. I got to move my picture again, don't I? Let me get out of the way here. Let me see. I got to do it this way. Ooh. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to get rid of myself. How's that? Boom, gone. That's better for everyone, right? Absolutely better for everyone. Okay, so if we look at these numbers here, back in 2015, his consistency rating was 63%, which is very close to what his overall rating is. So it takes a while for this rating to come up. But we can see in 2016, he's bumped up to 67%. In 2017, he played really well, 76%, making a lot of cuts. Once he got past the cut, though, he had a hard time making money. Because if you look at these numbers here, look at the FedEx Cup points as well. In 2015, he only finished the year with 270 FedEx Cup points. 2016, he finished with 774. So you can kind of see based on the FedEx Cup that Chez Reavie is trending in the right way. He has more FedEx Cups in his career at this point of 2019 than he's ever had in previous years. So he is going to do quite well. Obviously, the win helps that considerably. So 2017, you can see that he made 76% of his cuts. He made $1.9 million and finished with 1,152 FedEx Cup points. In 2018, he actually made fewer cuts, but the cuts he made them count and made more money, $2.7 million worth. And he got up there to 1,252 points. And then this year we can see his consistency rating now is actually of elite level this year, 81%. So having an excellent year, we saw that he was ranked 35th in the FedEx Cup points. He's already made $3.5 million, and his FedEx Cup rating, his points there in the FedEx Cup are 1,274, which we saw all the way back up here, puts him in 12th spot. Okay, so excellent job there. So that is Chez. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our benchmark review. Let's look at that really quickly. We covered everything there, didn't we? Yeah. So for this year, we would put him right in there with Koepka, McIlroy, Mickelson. But they have done that over the course of their entire careers. He's basically just, as a snapshot of 2019, ceteris paribus, as we like to say in economics, he would be an elite player in 2019. Definitely fits into that category. All right, so we're going to jump now into our benchmarks. For those that are joining us new, and we do have a lot of new folks following us, and I appreciate it very much. So I am going to do this every week to kind of help everybody understand how we work these numbers. So they're in yellow across that third row down, actually fourth row down if you look at the category row. But under benchmarks, we have 55%, 65%, 45%, 55%, 80%, and 30 putts. Okay. These numbers are numbers that we took from the 2018 PGA Tour totals, and essentially coming up with numbers in which we could start analyzing our game against, knowing full well that if our games were performing, if in these categories we are performing higher than these numbers, then we can say that we have a quote unquote, air quotes here, tour quality game. Okay, so basically I've tried to represent that. I used to look at, for all of you that have listened for a long time, I used to look at putts from 20 to 25 feet, 15 to 20 feet, all of that as well. I think that's a little too confusing, and so we've shaken it up a little bit, and we've made it so we have a much easier way to practice our putting now, and we'll talk about it when we get to that point in the review. Okay, so we look at essentially Chez Reavie's his performance for this week in the win, as well as compare that to his performance for all of 2018. We like to look at the entire year because the benchmarks are based off 2018 and see how he shakes out. If we look here at his driving accuracy for the week at the Travelers, he averaged 84% of his fairways, quite a bit better than his 2018 number of 72% by 12%. And if you saw that course, it was not easy, right? So really well done off the tee. Excellent job off the tee. Now our benchmarks here are 55%, meaning if we are hitting as amateurs 55% or higher in our driving accuracy, then we would not necessarily need to go worry about working on our games. And that would give us what we still could call a tour quality game, because we're looking at players who hit less than 55% of their fairways on average would include a Phil Mickelson, a Tony Finau, and a Jimmy Walker, which I've got those down in the players' 2018 averages. Okay, so just to kind of give you a sense of what that 55% means, you would be hitting more fairways than those fine players, and Phil Mickelson, Tony Finau, and Jimmy Walker, right? Obviously, you could say you have a tour quality game off the tee if you hit 55% of your fairways or higher. Okay, next, greens in regulation. For the tournament, Chez Reavie averaged 75% of his greens in regulation, which is interesting when you can see that he hit 84% of his fairways, but neither here nor there. These greens were, kind of hard to understand that there was some wind blowing, different things going on. Typically, if you hit 84% of your fairways, you would expect to hit around the same number, if not a little bit higher in your greens in regulation. That's what the data shows. But in this particular case, it did not show that. But over the course for his career in 2018, in his 2018 numbers, he averaged 69% of his greens in regulation. Our benchmark is 65%. So again, you've got all four of those boxes in the green because all of them are over the benchmark number we have there. Phil Mickelson, Jason Duffner, and Patrick Reed would be individuals on tour who hit less than 65% of their greens in regulation. Okay, so if you're tracking your greens in regulation and hitting more than 65% of those, then you're doing great. Okay, you have a tour quality game. All right, sand saves. For the tournament, Chez Reavie got up and down out of the sand 75% of the time, which is a strong, really strong number. In 2018, he averaged 43% up and down out of the sand. That is below our benchmark number of 45%, and so we would suggest to Chez to spend a little time in the sand trap, and we would suggest to anybody who is part of the Data Access Golf audience to spend some time in the sand if you're not getting up and down 45% or higher from the sand. Those that get up at less than 45%, up and down less than 45%, Tony Finau, Bubba Watson, and Gary Woodland, our U.S. Open champion. And I know I have mentioned this in the past, but Tony Finau actually gave me a sand trap lesson once. And I will leave it there. He's a wonderful guy. Okay, strokes gained putting for the tournament. Chez Reavie averaged 1.2 strokes per round above the average of the field, right? So very good. He picked himself he picked himself up, 6.8 strokes on the field from putting. And which is really amazing if you look at his 2018 numbers. Typically, he would only pick up 0.2 strokes per round, so less than 1 stroke per tournament he was picking up on the field. Chez Reavie had a very good putting week, for sure. Picked up some confidence, obviously, at the U.S. Open, where they have the Poana greens, learned to putt on those, and that seemed to translate really well to putting on greens there at Cromwell, Connecticut, at the TPC River Highlands course, right? Great. Okay, scrambling. Actually, I didn't get the scrambling number here, did I? Interesting. So I did not put in the scrambling number here for Chez Reavie. I do not know why I did not do that, but I apologize. It's not there. We'll just have to leave it at that. I will look for that sometimes later, but scrambling essentially is getting up and down around the green when we have missed the green. And regulation, we want to get up and down essentially 1 out of 2 times. If we are doing more than that, then we're in great shape. If we're doing less than that, then we need to work on that part of our game. Individuals who get up and down less than 55% around the green, Adam Scott, Gary Woodland, and Jason Kokrak, Jason Kokrak used to be a good one to put on there, but he's really had a hard second half of the year. He has really struggled. But a very consistent player before now when I was looking at his numbers. Just weird to see him struggling so much now. All right, putting. All right. Now we're going to set this up a little bit. We used to have, obviously, these putting numbers from a wide variety of distances, and I had those broken down and benchmarks broken down there as well. Now we've adjusted that, and this is just based on straight up data. If we can make 80% or higher of our 5-footers, and I would really like, I've thought about maybe pushing that up to 90%, but it's hard to justify a 90% number when you see the number of people who are below 90% on the tour and how much they practice. So I'm going to leave it at 80%, but we should be making at least 80% of our putts from 5 feet. And I would ask all of you that listen to this show and are amateur golfers, when you do have time to putt, spend the majority of your time, and I'm talking 80-90%, from 5 feet and in. Okay? Putt like crazy from 5 feet and in. Because if you can get to a spot where you are so confident from 5 feet and in that the hole looks like a garbage can cover, as big as possible, where you have absolutely no doubt in your mind that you can roll in a 5-footer and not get freaked out and nervous about it, then you are going to become an excellent putter. Because those 5-footers, again, you're talking about really a 10-foot wide alley that you have to finish this putt within, right? As far as left and right of the hole, but also in front and back of the hole. So when you practice your chipping, when you practice your sand shots, all of that, you should be trying to get it within that 10-foot circle around the hole. That should be the focus of all your practice around the green and all your practice as far as putting goes. Now that goes for lag putting. We want to practice our lag putting to get it within that 10-foot circle. So we always have less than a 5-footer to get out of there. If we do that and we take the pressure off those 5-footers, our putting game will go crazy. You will not have the knee knockers. You will not be worried about the lag putt. When you really start thinking about a 10-foot circle, that's a big deal. That takes a lot of pressure off your chips. It takes a lot of pressure off your lag putting. It takes a lot of pressure off your sand game. When you start thinking of this 10-foot circle and how big that is, we freak ourselves out when we look at this tiny little hole and think that we have to get it within 1 foot. And sometimes we know we have to get it within 1 foot because 5-footers absolutely scare the bedoogles out of us. So we want to avoid that. We want to become so good from 5 feet and in that we don't care if we've got a 5-footer. It's no big deal. Okay, I hope that makes sense. We want to take the pressure off our putting game by making sure that the part that 5-footers and in are so strong, that is the strongest part of our putting game. The rest of it, our short game, everything comes in, it becomes very, very easy, right? Imagine how much more aggressive you can be with a birdie putt from 15 feet if you know you can make any 5-footer afterwards. That will make it so you make more birdie putts. That will make it so you make more par putts, right? You will take a chance on a par putt and be a little more aggressive if you know you can make the comeback or no problem. That will increase your par. That will increase the number of pars you have in a round. So really, really use that strategy in your putting, and I think that it will take pressure off every other part of your game. I'm doing it myself. That's the part. I'm practicing 5-footers. And then really picturing when I'm doing it, when I have a lag putt or a chip or my sand shot, I am pitching a 10-foot huge circle around that pin. And if I get it anywhere in there, I am absolutely thrilled because I know I can make my 5-footers. Right? And if it's 4, 3, 2, 1, great. Practice all of those. Just make sure that those become the strongest part of your game on the green, and everything else will open up. So a really good way to go. Okay, so if we look at then Chez Reavie's putting numbers from 2018 from 5 feet, 79%. So we would say, Chez, we put our arm around him, and he's only 5'9", so it's pretty easy to do. And we'd say, buddy, let's work on our 5-footers. Let's get our 5-footers in, okay? So, and definitely track yours. I'm going to leave it at 80%. Even if you're hitting 80% of your 5-footers, I would never not practice my 5-footers and in. If you've got, again, amateurs, we don't have a whole lot of time. If those 5-footers are always amazing and good, then we will be strong putters. So I want to get into a little bit now into why that's the case. Okay, so this is going to go a little bit into the weeds, and I'm going to reference a book called The Talent Code. It's a book that Fred Shoemaker had us read 10, 12 years ago. And it talks a little bit about the science of how our brains work and how we become proficient at certain activities. Well, the more we do something, the better we get at it, right? Practice makes perfect. But we didn't always understand the science of that. Well, when we are doing something and working on something, we're creating these neural pathways. And when we are working on something and being very deliberate about what we're working on, so let's say 5-footers. If I'm trying to make a lot of 5-footers and I'm missing 5-footers, so then I'm working on my stroke and I'm working and making sure that I'm staying within this 5-foot range and I'm absolutely grinding and learning. That is what the author of this book, Daniel Coyle, likes to call deep practice. It's the art of practicing chunking down on small things and getting super, super good at them so they absolutely become no-brainers. Because the more we practice and the more we work precisely on these little actions, so 5 feet and in and making sure that we can make all of those putts every which direction, up and down, 5-footers become so second nature to us. As we make small adjustments to make sure we make these 5-footers, it builds what they call the myelin around this neural pathway. And this myelin is like an insulation that makes it super efficient for an electrical impulse to run through and be very precise and very quick. So in a very real sense, 5-footers will become second nature to us if we consistently practice on them. So that's why I'm saying, don't get caught up in practicing everything else. Practice these 5-footers. So we've developed these neural pathways where 5 feet and in becomes a joke to us, and we have these very defined neural pathways wrapped in thick myelin where we don't have to, our brain fires and our body just goes, and we become so amazing 5-foot putters that it takes pressure off everything else. Okay, so there's science behind this 5-foot strategy. And there you go. For those that didn't want to get into science today, I apologize. It's summer, so I know it's a summer break, but it's really cool that we can use science now to back this up. This is a great strategy to take a lot of pressure off your short game and really get those scores down and take the stress off it. Is really using this deliberate, deep practice to become an excellent 5-foot putter and in. Okay, last and final sort of number that we look at, Chez Reavie averaged 29.12 putts per round. We've got that 30 or less number. Again, it doesn't really change our strategy. We should be working on 5-footers and in and spend a little time on our lag putts and around the green and sand to try to get it within that 10-foot circle. Okay, cool. Thank you for that. I really appreciate, you know who you are. I appreciate the suggestion of going and making sure that we show the trending numbers. I do think that they're interesting and they're fun to look at for the players that win each week, but also going through and reducing these putting numbers down to something a little more simple. And actually this will change the app that we're working on as well to make it easier to track. Okay, cool. Now we're continue to move on. The money. We get to talk about the money. Now, so for this tournament, which I didn't fix that either. I am off my game here. We're going to just change it real quick, folks. Travelers. Okay. So for the Travelers tournament, the first prize, Chez Reavie won $1.296 million, and his score total was 276. That would equate to $324,000 a day, or $64,000 a month. I'm sorry, an hour. I got to get rid of that. An hour, $64,000 an hour, which equates to almost $5,000 a stroke. In his career, Chez now has made almost $15 million. He has made 173 cuts. So his per cut total is $86,401, which is the lowest of this year, which I found hard to believe because we had some really low numbers there, and I was shocked by this. So Chez Reavie now has become the low man on the totem pole as far as money per cuts for our winners in 2019. And just to kind of give you an idea, I've left up there the money versus cut totals. Tiger Woods averages $376,000 per cut. Rory McIlroy's in second at $340,000. But you look at the cuts made, Rory's got 137 versus Tiger's 322. Dustin Johnson makes almost $300,000 a cut. Justin Thomas, 102 cuts, but he makes 273, almost $274,000 a cut. And the Brooks Koepka has come screaming up, but now only sits at number 5 with the least amount of cuts in this number here. But he makes $256,000 a cut. Obviously, all those majors, right? The 4 majors help out with that immensely. Now, these other screens, I normally have gone to the PGA Tour, and that is literally screen 7 and screen 8. I have left them there. I usually go to the PGAtour.com's website, and I will screenshot in the top 10 areas where those individuals are showing, but Chez doesn't show up in any of those top 10 areas, so we'll just leave it at that, right? Okay, excellent. So that is how Chez Reavie got it done. Obviously, an amazing round of golf. An amazing week of golf for him. Back up here. An amazing round of golf for him. His swing is something I really believe that we should probably look at that. We should analyze that swing because there's some stuff going on that is really unstructured. And I think that when we look at these consistency numbers, when we break down those players' swings, we can always find the spot where they've added a great deal of variability. And so it's very hard for them to stay consistent week to week. Or some of these players that have a very high consistency number, they are their swings are just solid. There's just not a lot of moving parts, and so they have a lot of structure, a lot of discipline in their swings, and the swings are very natural to them, right? So, very cool stuff. I'm still working on my certification for the body track, which has been completely fun. I actually had a really cool session with my daughter on Saturday at the range that I want to talk about this year. She is coming along swimmingly. I know that we've talked about she wants to make the golf team as a freshman next year, and so we're going to work really hard this summer. Fortunately, she doesn't have to try out or do any of that until the fall. So we have essentially a full year to get her in shape. But the way she's played since she was little, and the way she just hasn't done a lot of the, I'm not a big fan of youth tournaments and things. I just don't see why you put so much stress on a child so early. I think that you want them to have fun. So again, that's just my tournament. I find tournaments stressful. I don't know why a child wouldn't. But anyway, so we had a great time on the range, and some really cool things that from some of her questions, it kind of opened up some things in my mind as to maybe some things that might help all of us learn a little bit more quickly. She has a very quick, and she's a brilliant young person. She just analyzes information so quickly that I feel like she's always a couple steps ahead of me, which is, when you're trying to coach someone, is really awesome. That's really cool. But she's come along immense. She's doing really well, and I'm excited about that. We'll talk about that. Maybe even show you some of her swings I'm going to get her permission so I don't get in the doghouse with my sweet daughter. But really cool stuff coming up. Some cool podcasts coming up too. Still working on getting Fred Shoemaker in here as a guest, but did get the commitment from them on a phone call on Thursday. So looking forward to that as well. I'll definitely let everybody know when that's coming about. But for now, that's it. Chez Reavie, a great victory, obviously. Picks up a lot of FedEx Cup points, picks up a lot of cash, obviously, and then played really well. Confidence from, we can see, right? Confidence from the U.S. Open carried over, and he got the win there at the Travelers Championship. So until next time, Aaron Stewart saying, remember, better data always means better golf, and get out there and work on the parts of your game that are weakest. Don't worry about the other parts. Five footers and in two on the putting green. Go for it. Till next time, thanks.